Hello everyone, thanks for watching. This one is for Manny, who is a bird enthusiast. For this sculpt, I'm turning his favorite rooster into a Kung Fu Kickin' chicken. This is of course going to Manny for free, as that's what I do on this channel. For the armature, I'm using some 28 gauge copper wire, about 40 centimeters of it, and I start by folding it in half. Then I twist the wire together, starting from the bend point in the middle until I've gone down more than far enough to reach the hips. If it's too tall, once I've figured the legs and feet out, I can just clip the excess off from the top end. I measured the legs out at 2.5 centimeters, but that's more than I'm going to need, especially since this mini won't be anchored into a base. Then I fold the wire back into the body at the hips. The ends loop around the body and go up to the shoulders. The same kind of path to complete the wings. And then I complete the legs and arms by twisting the twinned wire nice and tight. I'm starting off clipping and splitting the ends of the leg wire and bending it out into claws. I'm going to add a third opposable claw onto each foot later on. I'm starting in the middle for clay, and I'll bake and add more as I move out. I'm using either Fimo Professional or Sculpey Primo. I honestly can't remember anymore which clay I'm using. Those two behave fairly similarly, and I have them stored in Ziploc bags, which I didn't properly label. For the smaller, more tightly packed feathers all over the body, I'm just texturing them into the clay by hand. This looks fairly close to how I do fur. Either way, we get a fluffy looking rooster, so that's good. I'm trying to not just make lines in the clay with my knife, but lift it away from the core to make it look like little pieces sticking out like lots of little feathers. I'm using some softer clay here to lay down the base for the wings and legs. When I say softer clay, I'm using the same clay as for the body, but I've conditioned it more by mixing in a little petroleum jelly. You don't want to go overboard with conditioning. Just a little bit here has made it softer and stickier. And that's a double-edged blade. It goes onto the armature easier and sticks really well to the armature, but it also sticks to my fingers and sculpting tool. So I'm constantly dipping my fingers and sculptor into a little water dish, since the softer the clay is, the more hydrophobic it is. Chickens, and some other birds too, have those fun little horizontal wrinkles all down their legs. It makes their legs look nice and rough. I'm just adding that little detail with my knife here. In making a good detailed head, I normally like to use harder clay that stays in place better and holds crisper details. Sometimes I even make a smaller core first and bake that before adding the outer layer. But this guy's head is going to be really feathery and I don't need the details being as crisp, so I'm just slopping on the softer clay and letting the chaotic texture take over. The beak does seem a bit long to my eye, and I do end up clipping it later after it's already baked. I put in a couple of horizontal slits for eyes and let the mad feather texture droop around it. It seems to be working great for now. I'm building up the base of the wings because I want a slightly broader surface for the feathers to stick to. More surface will make it easier to get them on, easier to orient their direction, and more durable in the end. And I'm adding more of that lovely feather texture and bulk to the thighs. This kicking chicken is going to have the legs of a champion. And here's what I was talking about earlier with the third opposable talon. I just clipped and bent up some more of the same wire, This softer clay is really sticky and works just like glue. I was able to get the talon on there, bake it, and then bend the talon slightly more to shape it without that thin layer of clay cracking. I still have to be gentle, of course, when handling it, but it worked out as well as I could have hoped. The rooster that I'm basing this one on from Manny's reference picture has several different colors in its plumage. I'm starting with black here. This paper I'm working with is just plain tissue paper. It started off white and translucent, and I just colored it with a black marker. The black paper is going to give the upper feathers some undercoloring and also form an even broader base to which to attach them, and this all just glues on with some lacquer. I'm using the same color for most of the tail feathers here, starting with broader, shorter feathers down lower and long, thinner plumes over top of those. And lastly, some long white strips over those to complete the tail feathers. Gotta fluff the tail up so it's not just sticking straight out. Give those tail feathers some of that same chaotic energy. I'm using more tissue paper here for the wing feathers. I colored this with a brown marker. It gives a pretty flat color, but I'll be adding paint later to vary the tone. The broader base is really making this easier than it would have been to just stick the feathers onto a thin strip of clay. I'm thinking the result will be more durable too. Some more soft clay here to cover up the top edge of the wings. This gives it a more solid look, and while it visually cleans up the mess that the top edges of the feathers were, I can't just leave it all smooth like that. I try some different texturing methods as I go, just changing it up along the way, adding more clay to make it a bit thicker and to see what I can do, what works. In the end, I'm happy with this look that I got by pushing the flat of my sculpting tool into the side of the clay with the point down. I think it looked pretty feathery. And here's what Manny's Kickin chicken looks like with some more paint. A piece of wire stabbed into some clay to make a stand for this little jumper, and here we go. Thank you for watching, and thank you Manny for suggesting this sculpt. I hope you're enjoying what I do here on this channel. If you want to support what I'm doing, a like and subscribe are free and easy ways to do so. Goodbye.